Normally, I'd be reaching for the Kiddush cup right there so that we could do Kiddush. But it is Sukkot. And during Sukkot, the best place to do the Kiddush is
In the Sukkah.
in the Sukkah. So we'll be carrying that all the way to the Sukkah after services, and we will do Kiddush there, as well as have our own egg dessert and all the other lovely things that we get to do. Once you've been to the Sukkah a little bit, if you want to come back in the air conditioning, that's okay. No judgment. And as a warning, if it's raining, we don't do the Sukkah. Right? We are supposed to be happy during the time of Sukkot,
Not miserable.
which kind of boggles the mind of why our ancestors would have chosen for us to read from the book of Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, during the time of Sukkot. If this is the happiest holiday of the year, why do we read the book that says, vanity of vanities, everything is vanity? Remember, vanity doesn't mean looking in a mirror. Vanity means it is pointless. This is the great existential declaration of angst by King Solomon. And you probably know some of the famous parts of it. There was a time for everything under the sun, right? Yes, right. And it's not just a time for good stuff. There's all the bad stuff that we get reminded of. It also tells us that of the making of books there is no end, and yet wisdom doesn't seem to be all that great, because both wise or foolish, we all end up dead and buried. And even if we raise up a happy family, who knows if they're going to be decent once you're gone? You could be bequeathing all that you worked so hard to make to a bunch of louts that will spend it on wine, women, and song. It is not exactly a happy book. And so we have to ask, why in the world our ancestors chose this of all of the books to read? Now, there's a pedantic answer, which is, well, it's the only book that doesn't have an obvious pair. All the other holidays have obvious mates. Tisha B'Av has the Book of Lamentations, makes perfect sense. Passover has the book Shir HaShirim, at least metaphorically, as a love song between us and God, no problem. Shavuot has the book of Ruth, again, no brainer. It's set in the harvest time, it makes perfect sense. And obviously the book of Esther goes along with the story of Purim. So Kohelet is kind of floating there. And it landed on Sukkot. So that's sort of the pedantic answer. But really our ancestors, I think, were onto something much deeper. Now, I will give you the traditional answer first, and then I'll give you my answer. So the traditional answer of why Kohelet for the time of Sukkot is that it is meant to let a little air out of our balloon. Just a little. But to understand why our balloon would be full, you have to understand the agricultural cycle under which all of Sukkot, and indeed all of the holidays, operates. This time of year, what did you see when you opened up your barn or your storerooms?
Just finished the harvest.
You just finished the harvest, right? The main harvest, primarily wheat at this point, was all gathered in, and it was filled to the rafters. In fact, there was usually, if it was a good year, more than you could possibly even store all the way through, more than you would need to get you through the winter before the barley grain would come in and then your harvest would begin again. So what did you do at this time of year? You ate. You ate, and we take it for granted. Most of us are trying to lose a few pounds, but for most of human history, it was a struggle to make sure you got enough calories every day to stay alive and healthy. And so when you were able to eat from the surplus at this time of year, physically, you were about peak happiness for the entire calendar of the year. This was when you would eat the most, and with all the sacrifices of Sukkot, you'd probably be eating meat, which you didn't usually have on a daily basis. There would be new fruits that had been harvested and gathered in. The vegetables would be fresh and amazing off that great summer growing cycle. And this would be wonderful. And our ancestors pointed out that when we harvest and we grow fat, we grow arrogant. This is something the Torah points out. It's why we have a longer blessing after we eat than before we eat, because it's when we're satiated that we're most likely to forget God. And therefore, the book of Ecclesiastes comes along to tell us, you're going to die. Just so that we remember that, yes, We are doing well and we're feeling happy physically, but that's not the end all and be all of everything. Because the end all and be all of everything, well, the end at least, is the same for us as well as that cow you just ate. So it is there to help recenter our perspective on ourselves and on our life, which is a very good reason. And for many of us, we need that extra little punch upside the head to remind ourselves not to get so full of ourselves when things are good. But I like to think that our ancestors also understood the angst of Kohelet, which was even deeper. Because after all, Kohelet was written by a king. This was written by somebody who was at the peak of power and the peak of comfortable living, but who was also known for his wisdom and insight. And yet it reads like somebody who is tormented. And I think that the book of Kohelet comes to give voice to some of the thoughts that any one of us at different times, or perhaps frequently, may have, even, or perhaps especially, when times are good. We often think of depression and angst coming when things are bad, and certainly they do. But sometimes, when a person is sitting, surrounded by their family and friends, drinking good wine, eating good meat, relaxing, and enjoying all that is supposed to be good in life, they can still feel empty. They can still feel unsure of why they're not as happy as they think people should expect them to be under those circumstances. I've got everything. I'm living the good life. Why does it feel so inadequate? And the book of Kohelet comes along to tell us, you're not crazy. It's not wrong to wonder that. You're right. You're sitting here and you're eating, you're drinking, and you're looking around even at the intangibles of your family and community. And sometimes it's not going to feel like it's 100% what you were promised. Sometimes it's going to feel like maybe this isn't where happiness is just found. Sometimes it's going to feel like there's something wrong with you, that you can't just be happy with what you have. And that's okay. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to wonder, what is my purpose? It's okay to wonder, is there more to life than just a full belly and a smile on other people's faces? It's okay to be confused, even when you have no reason to be confused in the eyes of the world around you, or at least the narrative that the world and society often gives you. And then Kohelet doesn't give us a whole lot of answers, which I really appreciate. Because if it had just been a simple aphorism, a few platitudes, and then boom, it was all taken care of, an existential crisis averted, it would ring hollow. Indeed, all of those self-help book titles and Barnes & Noble shelves all sound so fatuous, with the idea that, oh no, it's okay, it's all fine. Like, no, allow a person to be uncomfortable. Recognize that they have a real legitimate concern within them, and that this should be expressed, and this should be felt, not denied, not brushed aside, and not called pathological. That we should reflect upon the meaning of life when things are good, as well as when things are bad. And Sukkot comes along to give us that opportunity, and it does it by the beautiful juxtaposition, not just of the happy holiday and the reflective book of Kohelet, but also by putting us in a sukkah, by recentering us and saying, you're right. If you're looking for happiness by a full belly and by happy smiles and a comfortable life, then you're going to be unhappy. But that will always be an ephemeral dream that you will chase, and it will just be out of reach no matter how fast you run. But if you realize that what actually can be a source of happiness can be found within that little hut, then maybe you'll be able to begin the process of establishing yourself, grounding yourself, rooting yourself in a path towards better understanding of who you are, your relationship to the world around you, and your relationship to God. And through that, says the book of Ecclesiastes, then there will be a type of wisdom that is more than cleverness. There will be a type of wisdom that brings peace and satisfaction that has nothing to do with the stomach, nothing to do with the comforts of life, nothing even to do with perhaps avoiding the problems in life. We know that all of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all of the people throughout the Tanakh, they all suffered and went through great trials and tribulations. And yet we also know, especially those first three, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they said that they were satisfied, that they had all that they wanted. If we can find a way to feel the same in that little barren hut, if we can detach ourselves from the things that bedevil us through the wants and the needs and the horrible jealousies and bitternesses, then we can find that same measure of satisfaction. Doesn't mean you have to give up the full stomach and the good wine and the happy times, but it means we don't look at those as being the source of satisfaction. They are the embellishment. They are an extra detail that can give us a certain amount of pleasure, but it is not there that our soul will truly sing. It's a background accompaniment at the most. So when we go out to the sukkah and you look at it, and it's a little, well, it's been hit by the winds and rains, but it's doing pretty well this year. Ask yourself, what would it take inside of me to feel okay and happy living here? What would I need to let go of to be happy here? Don't expect you to answer that quickly. Don't expect you to adapt that perspective easily. But if you can find a path that would let you find happiness in a sukkah, then I think you'll understand why we read Ecclesiastes during this time of year. Shabbat Shalom and Moadim L'Simcha.